My name is Susie Hart, and I am 32 years old. If you had asked me back in early 2018 to describe my life, I would have told you I was lucky. Not win the lottery lucky, but normal lucky. A decent apartment, a contract job that paid the bills and let me work from home part of the month, and a husband who, from the outside, looked like a catch. My husband, let's call him Caleb, was 30, polished, and charismatic. Director at a technical sales firm, the kind of man who knew which fork to use at the company dinner and how to make a room full of executives laugh. We'd been married 3.5 years. We met 5 years earlier at a friend's barbecue. It was one of those sticky summer nights where everyone smelled like smoke and sunscreen. I remember noticing him because he made space for me at the crowded picnic table and said, "Hey, you look like you got stuck with the worst seat. Switch with me." I laughed, and just like that, conversation flowed. He liked that I was a little blunt, a little rough around the edges. I liked that he seemed so sure of his path. Within weeks, we were living in that dizzy, stupid phase where you can't keep your hands off each other and you text even when you're in the same room. We married 8 months later and moved into a big apartment while saving for a house. For the first 3 years, I would have put our marriage in the honestly pretty good category. Not perfect, no marriage really is, but good enough that I didn't lie awake at night wondering who I'd married. Then things shifted. It wasn't one big fight. It never is. It was a series of tiny, almost invisible cuts. Caleb's hours got longer. "It's just the role," he'd say, loosening his tie while I sat on the couch with my laptop, finishing a report. "Director means I pay my dues now, so we have options later." Meanwhile, my contract job required travel every so often, 3 to 4 days away every 5 weeks or so, but I could do most of my work from home. I offered, more than once, to cut back on trips, to be around more. "Don't act like a martyr, Susie," he snapped once, shoving his briefcase into the corner. "You're gone for days at a time. My dinners with clients are literally my job." The part that hurt wasn't the logic, it was the contempt under it. The intimacy began to drain out quietly too, like a slow leak. The M word, "I'm just tired, Susie, it's been a long day," started to show up more than I did in our own bed. I told myself it was normal. People get tired, people get stressed. But every time he rolled away from me, my self-esteem took another small hit. I wish I could say I knew the exact moment everything broke. Instead, there was a pink bra. It was September 2017. Caleb texted that he'd be late, again, but then surprised me by coming home on time, saying he needed to swing by the store first. When he pulled into our parking spot, he called me from the car. "Hey, can you help grab the grocery bags from the back seat?" I went down, still barefoot, keys in my hand. I opened the back door, reached for a paper bag, and something caught my eye. A flash of pink under the front passenger seat. At first, I thought it was just some plastic wrapper or fabric scrap. Then I tugged it free. A lacy bra, not mine. I froze. My first stupid thought was, did I lose weight? Did something fall out of my drawer? I turned it over in my hands, my heart going cold. No. Different size, different brand, different everything. Caleb has always kept his car obsessively clean. No forgotten gym socks, no random laundry. For a bra that wasn't mine to be wedged under his front seat, there was no version of that made sense. My stomach dropped so hard I nearly dropped the grocery bag too. My hands started to shake. For a second I thought I might throw up right there in the parking lot. By the time I walked into the kitchen with the bags, my face must have given everything away because Caleb frowned. "Hey, you okay? You look like you saw a ghost." I heard myself say, "I'm fine," in a voice that didn't sound like mine. I tucked the bra back under the passenger seat, like I could hide the truth from reality itself. All evening, that flash of pink nearly burned a hole in my brain. Every excuse I tried to make for it died in my throat. Random laundry? No. Someone else's jacket or bag? Who undresses in their coworker's car? I didn't sleep much that week. I also didn't have proof beyond that bra and the late nights and the cold bed. No screenshots, no text messages, just an item of clothing that didn't belong to me, hidden in my husband's car like a dirty secret. So I did what a lot of people do. I told myself I was overreacting and simultaneously started watching him like a hawk. Around that time, Caleb's work engagements after hours ramped up. It went from once a week to 3 or more nights. He'd come home, kiss my cheek, and announce, "I've got to head back out for a client thing. It's the politics up there, Susie. You know how it is." I did not know how it was, actually, but I knew how my gut felt. A month before everything exploded, I decided I'd try the opposite approach. Be the best wife possible, surprise him, remind him what we had. So one Friday, I turned down a travel assignment and stayed home. I cooked his favorite dinner. I set the table with our good plates and real silverware instead of the usual mismatched forks out of the drawer. I lit candles. I even bought a decent bottle of wine and a bouquet of roses and put on the dress he used to call my date night dress. I wanted to meet him where he walked in and have him see the life we'd built. See me and remember. He breezed in on his phone, laughing at something, briefcase slung over his shoulder. When he finally hung up and turned, I gestured at the table like a nervous waitress. I made us dinner, I said, forcing a smile. Just us? No emails, no clients. For a half second, his expression softened, then it was gone. He gave me a little apologetic smile that never reached his eyes. Susie, this looks amazing, he said. But I already told the team I'd be out tonight. Some of the execs are flying in. It's kind of important. Maybe I can grab a quick bite and then... I thought maybe dinner together would be important too, I cut in. The silence between us went thick and heavy. He sighed, glanced toward the hallway. I really need a shower before I go, he said. We'll talk about this later, okay? He walked away, leaving me standing there between the candles and the roses and the plates set for two. Something in me snapped. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the plates. Instead, in this bizarre, icy calm, I picked up my work phone, the one my company used for tracking travel hours, and slipped it into the backseat pocket of his car while he was in the shower. If he wanted to spend his nights with the team, I was going to find out which team that really was. On my way back up, I stopped at the dumpster and dropped the entire dinner into the trash. The perfectly cooked food, the flowers, the little picture of us that I'd propped near the candles. It all went in. It felt like throwing a fake future away. When he came out of the shower, smelling like his expensive soap, dressed sharp and smiling like nothing was wrong, he glanced at the now empty table. You changed your mind? He asked. Go out with your friends, I said. I'm not hungry anymore. He studied me, frowning. Are you mad? I'm disappointed, I heard myself say, in the fact that you never seemed to want to be here. He rolled his eyes. God, Susie, don't start. You're acting like a child. You know how hard I'm working for us. Right, I murmured. For us. He smirked, grabbed his keys, and left in a little gust of cologne and cool air. The second the door clicked shut behind him, I pulled out my personal phone and opened the tracking app linked to my work phone. A tiny icon popped up on the map, moving. At first, it went where he said he'd be, a bar he often mentioned, about 20 minutes away, the usual work hangout. I stared at the dot pulsing on the screen, my heart hammering. I could have stopped there. I could have closed the app and poured myself a drink and pretended I trusted him. Instead, I grabbed my own keys. By the time I parked across the street from the bar, my palms were so sweaty I could barely hold the steering wheel. I spotted his car in the lot immediately. I know that ridiculous custom license plate anywhere. I waited. I felt like a stalker, sitting there in the dark, watching the door. My rational brain whispered, "You are being insane." My gut whispered, "No, you're finally waking up." An hour crawled by. Then the door opened, and there he was, Caleb, laughing, stepping into the cool night air with a woman at his side. She was in a fitted dress and heels, the kind of woman that looks like she came pre-approved from a catalog. He put his hand on her lower back. She leaned in. They paused by a car that wasn't his. And then he kissed her. Not a friendly peck, not an oops, we tripped moment. A deliberate, familiar kiss, like they'd done it 100 times. My stomach twisted into knots so tight, I could barely breathe. My body went numb from the inside out. I watched them get into her car, his head thrown back in laughter at something she said. I followed at a distance, headlights off until I had to turn them on. 10 minutes later, they pulled into a hotel parking lot. Of course, a hotel. I pulled over on the street, a little further down, my hands shaking so hard I could hear my keys rattling. They got out of the car. He held her hand. They walked into the hotel together, side by side, like a couple. I watched the automatic doors slide shut behind them. Something inside me broke with a quiet, final crack. I don't remember how long I sat there gripping the steering wheel, trying not to scream. At some point, my vision blurred from tears. At some point, I started hitting the wheel with the heel of my hand, over and over, just to feel something. I'd always thought I'd be the woman who confronted a cheating husband in the lobby, who blew everything up spectacularly. Instead, I put the car in drive. I started to drive out of the city, past the streetlights, past the clusters of houses and strip malls, until the lights thinned and the road rose and the darkness around me turned into hills. The farther I drove, the smaller the life I had with Caleb felt behind me. The ring on my finger suddenly felt like a shackle, cold and wrong. The thought that finally cut through the fog was simple, terrifying, and clear. I cannot go back home like nothing happened. The highway curved, the night stretching out in front of me, empty and full of unknowns. That was the night I headed toward the hills, and toward a version of myself I hadn't met yet. The road curved upward into the dark, the hills swallowing me whole. For the first time since the moment I saw Caleb kiss that woman, I exhaled, one long, shaky breath that felt like it carried years of denial with it. I didn't have a plan. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't even grab a jacket. All I knew was that if I turned around and drove home, I would collapse into the version of myself who kept pretending everything was fine. And that woman couldn't survive another night like this. I kept driving until the city glow disappeared behind me. The silence became loud, almost violent in my ears. My hands were still trembling on the wheel when the soft neon glow of a small bar appeared. At the side of the road, its old-fashioned sign buzzing faintly. The Rusty Pine. The kind of place where no one asks too many questions. I pulled in because I didn't know what else to do. Inside, the air smelled like spilled beer and pine cleaner. A woman behind the counter, mid-40s, sharp eyes softened by life experience, glanced up the moment I slid onto a stool. Her brows dipped. "Sweetheart, you look like someone stole your whole damn world." I almost laughed, or cried, hard to tell which. Instead, I managed a faint, humorless smile. Something like that. She didn't pry. Just poured me a whiskey and left the bottle nearby, as if she already knew I'd need it. A man took the seat next to me. Broad shoulders, weathered hands, boots that had seen real dirt. A little older than me, maybe 40. His voice carried the steady tone of someone who lived far away from corporate nonsense. "You okay?" he asked gently. Normally, I would have shut down, brushed him off. But that night, the truth slipped out like a confession. "My husband is having an affair." He gave a soft whistle. "Damn, I'm real sorry." I shrugged, staring at the amber liquid swirling in my glass. I watched him walk into a hotel with her. The bartender paused mid-wipe, shoulders dropping in sympathy. The man beside me didn't give me pity. He gave me something else entirely, a grim nod of someone who had been there. "Name's Ray," he said, offering a hand I didn't take. "I've lived through that storm. It'll tear you apart if you stay in the middle of it." I didn't respond. He continued, "Listen, you're in fight or flight right now, and most people don't realize you're allowed to pick flight." I let out a shaky laugh. "So what? I should just disappear?" Ray leaned back, considering. "I've got this old travel trailer on my property. Nothing fancy, needs a little tightening and rewiring, maybe a new water hookup, but it's private, quiet, out by the foothills. If you need somewhere to get your head straight, I wouldn't mind letting it go cheap." I blinked at him, stunned. "You're offering your trailer to a stranger?" He shrugged. "People helped me when my world burned down. This is me paying it forward." The bartender snorted. "If I'd had the sense to run away and live in a trailer years ago, I'd be retired on a beach by now." Ray chuckled. "See, even fate's giving you hints." I took a long drink, the burn grounding me. "What if I don't know how to leave?" Ray tapped the bar with 2 fingers. "Stay in that house, and the walls will start to rot around you. Leave, and at least you'll have space to breathe. You don't owe a man who betrayed you the courtesy of falling apart in front of him." His words struck something raw and hidden inside me. He wasn't wrong. He didn't give me a speech about saving my marriage. He didn't ask what I did to drive my husband away. He didn't tell me to talk things out or be understanding. He just said the truth plainly. I didn't have to stay. We talked for an hour, maybe 2. I don't remember everything I said, just that the more I spoke, the lighter my chest felt, like someone was slowly unwinding rope from around my ribs. When I finally stood to leave, Ray placed a business card on the counter. "My address is on the back," he said. "If you want to look at the trailer, come by in a few days. I'll tow it to my land for you, get you set up." I stared at the card for a long moment. A trailer, a patch of land, a life with no Caleb, a place where nobody knew me or expected me to smile when I was dying inside. I thanked him quietly and walked to my car, the night air cool against my face. The next morning, the world inside our apartment felt wrong, claustrophobic. Each piece of furniture, each picture frame, each pillow felt like it belonged to a life I no longer lived in. Caleb came into the living room, hair still damp from a shower, acting as if nothing had happened. "Where were you last night?" he asked casually. I looked up slowly. And for the first time, I wasn't the one shrinking under the weight of his confidence. "Where were you, Caleb?" The question came out like a blade. He stiffened. "I told you I had drinks with coworkers." I stared at him. "Are you having an affair?" He froze. His eyes flickered. Shock, then calculation, then smooth composure. "No," he said evenly. "Why would you even ask that?" I didn't blink. "Someone told me." He crossed his arms. "Who?" "I'm not saying," he scoffed. "Susie, you're drunk, emotional, and paranoid. There's nothing going on." He said it so confidently, so dismissively, that a tiny part of me almost doubted my own memory. Almost. I didn't push the fight. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the bra on the table and demand answers. I didn't mention the bar, the kiss, or the hotel. Instead, something in me went still. Caleb walked away, likely thinking he'd won. But I already knew. I spent the next few days doing something quietly, methodically, almost mechanically. I began moving pieces of my life out of the apartment, one item at a time, when he wasn't home, when he thought I was working, when he thought I was loyal. And each item I moved to the trunk of my car felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. A few days later, I drove to Ray's place. The trailer was old, yes, but clean, functional, solid. And the land he offered? Beautiful. Trees swaying, dried grass glowing under the sun, a breeze that smelled like freedom. It felt like the first breath I'd taken in months. Ray watched me walk the property with my hands shoved into my pockets, my hair blowing in the wind. "So?" he asked. "You think you could stay here a while?" I turned slowly, taking in the silence, the sky, the space. "I think," I whispered, "this might be exactly what I need." And just like that, a plan began forming, quiet and sharp and final. I wasn't going to beg my husband for truth. I wasn't going to confront him in some dramatic showdown. I wasn't going to wait for him to admit what I already knew. I was going to leave. Slip out of the life he had ruined without ever giving him a chance to rewrite the story. The hills felt like they were waiting for me, and I was ready. Caleb told me about his upcoming work trip the following week as casually as someone mentioning they were picking up dry cleaning. "Executive offsite," he said, scrolling through his phone. 3 days. I'll be back Friday afternoon." I didn't ask who was going. I didn't need to. The moment he left for that trip, that was going to be my moment. He kissed my cheek lightly before heading out with his suitcase Friday morning. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Safe travels." If he noticed anything strange in my tone, he didn't show it. He was out the door within seconds. His footsteps down the hallway, the elevator ding, silence. And then my heart finally unlocked. I moved fast. I had been preparing for this quietly, piece by piece. Boxes hidden in my car, clothes moved in small bundles, toiletries replaced with cheap duplicates so he wouldn't notice anything missing. But now, it was time for the final sweep. I walked through the apartment slowly, the way you walk through an old childhood home, knowing you'll never see it again. The couch where we ate dinner while watching shows. The bathroom where I cried after he rejected me over and over. The kitchen counter where I used to leave little notes for him he never acknowledged. I pulled open drawers, grabbed only essentials, documents, laptop, chargers, the jewelry I actually cared about, a few photos, a duffel bag of clothes. Everything else, furniture, decor, all the things we bought for our future, he could keep it. It felt tainted now anyway. On the kitchen table, I placed my wedding ring, cold, small, suddenly meaningless, on top of a simple note I had rewritten at least 10 times. I hope it was worth it. Nothing more. Nothing less. Not because I didn't have more to say, I had entire novels of rage to unload, but because he didn't deserve my pain, my explanations, or my heartbreak. I walked out with the last bag, locked the door behind me, dropped the key in the mailbox slot, and didn't look back. Driving to Ray's Land felt different this time. I wasn't fleeing, I wasn't spiraling. I was leaving. I was choosing myself. Ray was waiting by the trailer when I pulled up, leaning against his truck with a jug of water and a toolbox at his feet. "Full jump today?" he asked, reading my face instantly. I nodded. "Full jump." He gave a low whistle. "All right then, let's get you set up." He helped tow the trailer to the spot I'd picked the week before, near the tree line, with a sliver of mountain view, through a gap in the branches. We hooked up the water line, power, checked the propane, and made sure the small heater worked. By the time the sun began dipping behind the hills, I was inside, sitting on the small, built-in couch, surrounded by the smell of pine and old wood. My heart still hurt, yes, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. Caleb's text started a few hours later. "Caleb, hey, landed. What are you up to?" I turned my phone face down. A few hours passed. Then, Caleb, did you take your charger? Mine's missing. Susie? Everything okay? By midnight, the tone changed. Caleb, where are you? Answer me. I turned my phone off. The next morning, Ray came by to drop off a few extra supplies and check on the water heater. We stood outside the trailer, the cool morning air brushing against my skin. You doing all right? He asked. I nodded. I think so. I just don't want him to know where I am. You don't owe him anything, Ray said simply. Those words kept me steady the rest of the day. By the second day of his trip, Caleb's messages escalated. Susie, seriously, where are you? Did something happen? I'm worried. Susie, what the hell is going on? Then, why is your ring on the table? Call me. We need to talk. Then anger. This is childish. You're blowing things out of proportion. Then desperation. Please, we can fix this. I need you to talk to me. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish him. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I knew if I heard his voice, even once, I might fold. Old habits, old hopes, old love, and he had already proven he would use them against me. When he returned from his trip and found the apartment empty, my phone exploded with calls. I turned it on once, just long enough to see the notifications, then shut it back off. That night, I stood outside under the stars, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the wind whisper through the trees. I was alone, heartbroken, unmoored. But something in me felt grounded too. I wasn't under his roof. I wasn't waiting for his car lights in the driveway. I wasn't making excuses for coldness or late hours. I was finally, quietly, painfully free. The next morning, I turned my phone on long enough to check for any messages from work. Caleb had sent more than 20. Some angry, some pleading, some frantic. And then finally, one that broke the lie he had clung to. Caleb, I'm sorry. There was someone, but it wasn't serious. I got caught up in work stuff and stress. I made a mistake. Please come home. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. A mistake. Months of lies, hotel rooms, stolen hours. A mistake. I turned the phone off again. Weeks went by. The world slowed down. The hills softened my breathing. I started running again, cooking again, sleeping again. Ray became a friend, someone steady, grounded, and respectful of boundaries. Life, in its quiet way, began healing me. And one morning, running along the narrow dirt trail near the creek, I saw a car pulled off to the side with a flat tire. A man, mid to late 20s, cute, sunburned, with messy hair and a sheepish grin, was struggling with the jack. You need help? I called. He laughed. I need a miracle, but I'll take help. That was how I met Evan. Sweet, a little goofy, outdoorsy. The kind of guy who noticed chipmunks and clouds and the way sunlight filtered through trees. We talked while I helped him replace the tire, and before he left, he smiled at me and said, You look like someone who belongs up here, a real mountain girl. I felt something warm uncurl in my chest. Not love, not yet, but possibility. A quiet promise that my story wasn't going to end in betrayal. Not if I didn't let it. Time passed. Months, not days. Enough for the raw pain to fade into something duller, something livable. Enough for the silence of the hills to become familiar instead of frightening. Enough for me to stop looking over my shoulder every time a car approached on the dirt road. By the time summer rolled back around, my life had settled into a kind of gentle routine. Wake up early, run the ridge trail, work remotely from the tiny fold-out table in the trailer, have lunch under the trees, walk in the evenings, talk to Evan sometimes, light, easy, nothing complicated, no lies, no double-checking a man's work schedule, no pretending I didn't know what a pink bra under a car seat meant. Caleb had stopped texting after I changed my number. His mother stopped calling too. Silence finally held. At least I thought it did. It was a Saturday morning when I drove into town for groceries. I parked outside my usual coffee shop, the place with the mismatched chairs, soft jazz, and good Wi-Fi. Nothing felt unusual. I ordered a latte, opened my laptop, started sorting through emails. The quiet chatter around me blended with the clinking of cups. Outside, sunlight spilled across the sidewalk. Normal, peaceful, mine. I worked for about an hour, then closed my laptop, grabbed my drink, and stepped outside. The moment I took a few steps toward my truck, I heard it. A voice that froze my blood. Susie? I didn't move, didn't breathe. The world narrowed into a single sharp point. Slowly, mechanically, I turned my head. Caleb was standing across the street, holding a to-go cup, eyes wide and disbelieving, as if I were the one intruding on his land. Susie, he called again, louder this time, starting toward me. My feet rooted to the ground. Every cell in my body screamed, run, but shock kept me anchored. He crossed the street quickly, too quickly, and before I could react, he was right in front of me. Up close, he looked different, thinner, a little unshaven, eyes tired. But the same expensive cologne clung to him, blending horribly with every bad memory I had tried to outrun. "Oh my God," he breathed, staring at me like I was a ghost. "I've been looking for you." I held my palms up automatically, creating space between us. "Don't," I warned softly. "Don't touch me." He froze, hurt flashing across his face. "Susie, I just want to talk. Please, just give me that." My pulse hammered. "Here isn't the place." He nodded eagerly. Okay, let's sit. There's a bench over there." Against my better judgment, and because running would draw more attention, I followed him to a bench near the corner of the block. I sat at the very edge, putting as much space between us as possible. He studied me for a long moment. "You look different," he said quietly. "Stronger, healthier, and your hair. God, you look beautiful." I stared at him, unmoved. Flattery isn't going to work. He swallowed hard. I deserve that. Silence stretched. Finally, he spoke again. His voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Susie, for everything, for the affair, for lying, for gaslighting you, for making you feel crazy. I'm so sorry." Some part of me, the part who stayed up nights waiting for him, who fought for scraps of affection, wanted those apologies years ago, wanted them desperately. But now? Now they felt like drops of water hitting a stone. "Why are you here?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. I heard you'd moved somewhere out here. A friend told me." My jaw tightened. "Who?" He hesitated. "Stacy. We ran into each other months ago. She mentioned she'd seen you." Of course. Stacy had seen me once in town and promised she wouldn't say anything. I let out a dry laugh. "So you've been coming here hoping to bump into me?" "I just wanted to talk," he said, voice cracking again. "I just needed to see you. I needed to explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "Why you kissed her. Why you walked into that hotel with her. Why you lied to my face afterward. Why you said nothing was going on while spending nights with her." He flinched with each accusation like I was throwing stones. "Susie, please. I was stupid. I was stressed. I was getting pushed around at work. I fell into something that I shouldn't have, and I didn't know how to get out." I cut him off sharply. "You chose to cheat. You chose to lie. You chose to watch me break and still said nothing." Tears filled his eyes. "I know. And karma came for me, Susie. Hard." He talked about the fallout, how HR discovered the affair, how his affair partner had a fiancé who exposed everything, how Caleb was reprimanded, demoted, nearly fired, how the woman he cheated with turned on him, blaming him for everything. "I lost my job," he said, voice low. "I lost my home. I lost you." There it was, the truth behind his sudden humility. He wasn't here for closure. He was here because he wanted something back. The version of me who held him together. The version who loved him through everything. The version who would forgive. I folded my arms tightly. "What do you want from me, Caleb?" He stared at me with painful desperation. "A second chance," he whispered. "I want to fix things. Start over. I love you, Susie. I didn't realize how much until you were gone." I blinked at him slowly. "Caleb, you don't love me," I said softly. "You miss what I did for you. You miss who I was to you. You don't miss me." He shook his head violently. "No, I miss you. I miss us. Please, let me take you to dinner. Just one dinner. Talk to me. I want to make this right." I exhaled shakily. One dinner couldn't undo a lifetime of damage. But running away again wasn't strength, it was fear. So I nodded, but firmly added, "One dinner, public place, and you're not coming anywhere near where I live." He smiled with relief. Too much relief. "Of course, anything you want." Dinner was tense. We ate at a quiet little restaurant with a patio, the sun setting behind the buildings. Caleb talked too much about therapy, regret, mistakes, missing me, wanting to rebuild. I barely touched my food. He kept leaning forward, eyes searching mine. "You feel it too, don't you?" he whispered at one point. "This connection, it's still there." I looked down at my hands. "No," I said honestly. "What I feel is closure." His face fell, but he didn't stop trying. Not when we stood up. Not when he walked me toward his car. Not when he reached for my hand and I pulled away. "Susie, please see me again. Please." I shook my head. "I'll think about it." He latched onto those words like a lifeline. I didn't correct him. When he leaned in for a hug, I stepped back sharply. "No," I said. Pain flashed across his face before he masked it with a tight smile. "Okay," he whispered. "I'll email you. I promise I won't push." He left, and I stood there on the sidewalk, breathing hard, feeling something strange. Not love, not longing, not fear. Just relief. Because seeing him again made one thing undeniable. I was never going back. Not to him, not to that marriage, not to that version of myself. The hills were waiting for me, and I knew exactly where I belonged. He emailed that night. A long, rambling message filled with apologies, declarations, and promises. The kind of letter a man writes when he's drowning and sees you as the only shoreline left. I read it once, then closed my laptop. The next morning, another email waited for me, then another, and another. They became daily, sometimes twice a day, always emotional, always dramatic, always begging. I can't stop thinking about you. I'm willing to start over from zero. We can move somewhere new, just the two of us. Tell me what it would take to win you back. It was suffocating. I didn't reply, not at first. I focused on my routines, on my breathing, on the early morning light through the trees, on work, on little pockets of peace, on Evan, who texted me photos of sunrise hikes and blurry squirrels. No pressure, no questions, no expectations. Just gentleness. But Caleb didn't slow down. Every message grew heavier, like he was trying to build a bridge between us out of pure guilt. I ignored them for days, until one showed up with the subject line, "Please read this one." Against my better judgment, I did. Inside was a single paragraph. "Susie, I accepted a job several states away. I want a new start. I want you to come with me. We can build a life far away from all of this. Please, don't let this be the end. I'll wait as long as you need. Just tell me you'll consider it. Caleb." I stared at the screen. A long, slow exhale left my chest. He didn't want healing. He wanted escape. He didn't want accountability. He wanted relocation. He didn't want me. He wanted the version of me who made his life easier. And suddenly, I knew exactly what needed to be said. So I opened a new email and typed. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't cruel, it wasn't poetic or angry. It was clear. "Caleb, I'm not coming with you. I'm not reconciling. I'm not interested in rebuilding what you destroyed. Please stop contacting me. Take care of yourself. Susie." I hovered over the send button for a moment, not out of hesitation, but because this felt like putting a final lock on a door I had already closed. Then I clicked send. 5 minutes later, his reply arrived. Angry, confused, accusatory. "So that's it? After everything? You won't even talk about it? You're being impossible. You're just running away." I didn't answer. Another email came, then another, each one more frantic than the last. "At least meet me before I move. We owe each other that. Please, Susie, I love you." I closed my email tab and didn't reopen it for days. When I finally checked again, the tone had changed. His final message was short. "If you won't even consider it, then I guess this is goodbye." And underneath it, a postscript. "I always thought you'd forgive me someday." I stared at that line for a long time. Forgiveness had never been the issue. Trust was. And trust didn't regrow just because someone regretted pulling the knife out. A week later, Ray came by with some extra firewood he'd chopped earlier that morning. "You look lighter," he observed as we stacked the logs near the trailer. "I feel lighter." "Good," he said. "Closure's a heavy thing, hard to carry, even harder to drop." He hesitated, glancing at me with a gentle half-smile. "You drop it yet?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I have." Ray clapped my shoulder once. "Then you're doing just fine." That weekend, Evan texted me. "Evan, I finally tried that hiking spot you mentioned. Almost died. Send help." I laughed for the first time in days. Then I drove out to meet him. He was fine. Dramatic, sunburned, dehydrated, but fine. We walked along the creek together, talking about nothing important. Trees, sunscreen, our worst childhood haircuts. There was no pressure in his presence. No emotional debt. No looming shadow of betrayal. Just possibility. And as the sun drifted lower and the sky turned soft gold, Evan nudged my shoulder lightly. "Hey, you okay? You seem peaceful today." I smiled. Small, real. I finally let go of something I should have dropped a long time ago. He nodded like he understood more than I'd said. And maybe he did. That night, back in my trailer, I deleted the entire email thread with Caleb. Then I blocked his address. Then I sat outside under the stars, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the wind whisper through the trees. No guilt, no ache, no second guessing. Just quiet. Just peace. Just me. For the first time in a very long time, my life felt like it belonged to me again. And that was enough. More than enough.